Good day everyone, welcome to Earthgyan. In this video, I'll cover 6 points plus bonus tips on how an NRI can retire in India with $1 million. My name is Shayan Sharkar and I am the author of Earthgyan.com. Earthgyan is a website providing readers with the right knowledge, tools and one-to-one guidance to create, manage and execute their portfolios. Before getting started, please put in a comment below why you think no one in India needs $1 million to retire before you hear the points I'm presenting here. Let's go. So I'm going to present six different points plus bonus tips. The first point is exactly how much is $1 million in rupees. As per the current exchange rate, this comes to around 8.4 crore rupees. There is talk in the market that this would become 9 to 10 crores under the Trump 2.0 administration. In pounds, this is 750k GBP, 7.5 lakh pounds, and in euros, it is almost the same, 950,000 euros. So that's definitely a large chunk of money. We will now see how much of this is worth in India if properly invested and made to last 40 years. Before creating a portfolio in India, an NRI must consider that there are four pillars of creating this portfolio. The first is house, kids, lifestyle expenses, and taxation. We'll cover them now one by one. House is fairly straightforward where they will live now that they have come back to India. Houses are of two types, either ancestral or self-made. Basically, when they can either inherit a house and live there, or they can buy a house or a flat in India and start living there. The costs, of course, would differ. The second factor regarding the house is the location. First would be whether they are staying in a tier one city or in some other place. Obviously, the costs in tier one cities will be higher. The infrastructure in tier one cities also will be better. Next comes kids expenses. This is specifically related to kids education expenses for higher studies. Will they study in India? Will they study in abroad? And what would be the expenses be for different type of degrees? Specifically, if there's any citizenship consideration is involved, let us say the kid is a citizen of US because they were born there. Would they then study in the US? All those considerations come into play. Next is lifestyle. And in lifestyle, the biggest expense is recurring vacations, especially foreign vacations. So we'll adjust for that also. Next is taxation, the fourth pillar. Taxation is a catch-all phrase. It covers mostly the taxation of assets which are held both in India and abroad, and specifically talks about the cases where you have, let's say, foreign retirement accounts like a 401k in the US IRA or UK pension plans which need to be converted into a QROPS here in India. So all of these come under the taxation. So it might be possible that this $1 million that we're talking about is not entirely repatriable to India. Some of it is now held abroad and the portfolio will have to be adjusted as per that. The next point is investment options. So there are multiple investment options. Some of these will create regular income like rent or interest, and some of these would create capital growth like mutual funds. For example, a typical mutual fund return estimate in India is around 12%, FDs around 6%, stock dividends around 2 to 3%, and I've created a video on stock dividends earlier, which I've linked now. Real estate is typically 3%, but if you invest in under construction property and by the time the flat becomes ready to move, the prices would increase and the rental yield will also increase, let us say, to 5 or 6%. Pension plans are also an option. Depending on age, you can get around 7%. So these are the various investment options which would be there, and we'll consider them in creating our portfolio. Next is something called sequence of return risk. This is fairly technical, and I'll give an example to explain what this means. Here in this slide, you can see that there are multiple portfolios and paths that I have shown here in the example. The red dotted one is the ideal one where the portfolio is at a certain value today. It increases over time due to growth and then starts falling as the portfolio gets depleted during retirement. But that is the best case scenario. If you see the other paths, some of them end at zero and the others get depleted before the retirement is complete. So those are the undesirable paths, and that is all due to market returns. What would happen is this is where sequence of return risk comes into play, which essentially says that if the returns are lower in the beginning of the retirement period, then it would hurt the retirement. For example, I've given this example where there are there are three particular returns: 10%, 30%, minus 20%. That is a case one. And in case two, the minus 20% and the plus 10% are swapped. In the second case, what would happen is withdrawals would happen when they would happen in the first year. That will deplete a greater proportion of the portfolio than the first case. So that is called sequence of return risk. So the portfolio that we are going to create will adjust for that as well. Now, the tool that we are going to create for this $1 million portfolio is the Earthcan Goal-Based Investing Calculator. So I've given a screenshot of the calculator here. It has multiple features which I'm going to just quickly take you through them. And here is the tool itself. So this is the tool that I have used, and I've set up this with the numbers that I just described. So I have put an asset base of 1 million USD here. If you see, this is 1 million US dollars. That comes to around 8.4 crore rupees. So that's the starting point of the portfolio. And I put multiple goals. Specifically, I have put retirement at 40 years for total. That's a 40-year retirement. I put some assumptions regarding equity and debt returns post tax, and I have put the expense that the family would have. For example, I specifically singled out travel as an expense for the next 20 years at the rate of 8 lakh rupees a year. So this, like I said, this would be one of the biggest expenses, and it makes a lot of sense to capture this separately. And what I also have here is an ability to add an income source in future if the family wants to work here in India. So that is also something I'm going to capture now. So if I run this model based on these assumptions, it shows that the model is mostly feasible, and it says that it's around 98% funded. So this means that uh, we have assumed that 15 lakhs would be the total, it'll be the annual spending in retirement. That's an approximate figure. That's slightly more than 1 lakh rupees a month. That's a fairly decent figure, because if you have house separately, the 1 lakh plus with everything in India in a tier one city is also perfectly fine. And specifically, we have taken out travel also from that. So that is taken care of. What I don't have here is the children's expense, because that would be a fairly big chunk which I've not modeled separately, which would be, in fact, 1 million dollars would not be sufficient if the child would be studying in the US or somewhere else abroad. So that is also something we need to look at. For this, like I said, this is mostly done. And what I've done here is I'm showing you how the portfolio will have to be created once this thing is a whole invested entirely into various asset classes like equity, debt, and cash. I split that based on the multiple buckets that there would be based on the durations of the goals. So I've also split, if you're investing in mutual funds, I've also split that into various mutual fund categories and approximate allocations to each of these categories for the total portfolio. That's how this tool works. And now, as a special case, I'm going to just add the expenses in retirement. So, sorry, the income sources in retirement. Specifically, like I said, there would be a small, if the family wants to work in a small low stress job, let's say 5 lakh rupees a year for the next, 15 years. I modeled that as well. I'll enable that and I'll recalculate. What this would essentially do is it's going to make the amount needed for all of these goals to be lower, because obviously you're getting income. So if you, what would typically happen is this SIP amount would disappear. That this recalculate, and I'm going to show you that this SIP amount would disappear, which means that there is enough money in the portfolio for everything, because you have decided to work for the next 15-ish years. So that's also something we're going to look at now. Yeah, like, yeah, this is now zero. And yeah, so the portfolio is fully funded, and we have enough cash to allocate, and these goals can be taken care of. So basically, to summarize, so we have taken $1 million, we have invested that in India based on these assumptions: equity, debt, and cash. These are the types of investments, all that is covered there. We've also assumed a small amount of income in retirement. So that's how this whole tool is structured. I'll leave a link to this exact sheet in the description section of the video, which you can take for your own purpose, and you can change the numbers and see how that would run. This tool is paid, and it will ask you for a license when you try to update it. So specifically for your example, you have to get hold of a license. Now, coming back to the presentation itself, I've come talked about additional income that I've covered in the tool itself. Coming to the bonus tips, that's fairly straightforward. I'm going to talk about three examples, three bonus items. One is the new tax regime. New tax regime allows you to pay zero tax as long as your income is 7.5 lakhs in India. So if you split your capital gains plus rent or interest income or pension income between two spouses, that you can stay within the this 7.5 lakhs limit at least for the first few years, and it would reduce your tax implications to practically nothing. So that's a good thing to have. The second bonus point is that if you are using rental income, and you automatically get a 30% tax deduction on the same. So 30% of your rent, let's say you get 10 lakhs of rent, 3 lakhs is automatically non-taxable. Only you have to pay tax on that 7 lakhs. And that 7 lakhs is obviously gets added to your total taxable income, which you can also then split in the name of two spouses, and the taxation would be fairly less from that perspective. And third is pension plan. Pension plans are the returns for pension plans that you get every month or every year, whichever way you structured it. That is also taxable at slab. But then again, you can split it between the two spouses. That would not only cover the spouses separately, as per the longevity of each of them, but it will also reduce the tax liability as well. So effectively, that's the whole presentation, and I hope you like it. I will come back in the future, and we'll see all of you in the next one. Thank you.